This is Connect Africa with me, Blessed Sugan. Welcome to our program. We have updates on the elections taking place in Sierra Leone.
There had been some attack around the opposition's office, and this was because they prematurely announced results, which both parties technically did.
And what is the cost of political unrest in the West Africa sub-region?
The preponderance of illicit activities resulting from easy access to small arms is causing a lot of havoc across the region.
5 countries. How are you going to work with them?
It is one of the few cases where we have the countries themselves agreeing to do it and calling on ECOWAS to act on their behalf.
There is a DNA testing, the process of DNA of 17 students who were banned beyond recognition. So at the moment, there is some uncertainty. Some of the parents think, hey, is my kid part of those that were banned beyond recognition, the 17?
Every human being has the right to a livable world. And to secure that livable world, all the rich nations and all the international financial organizations must transform the standard of doing business.
I am in Athalia Kwanzaa in Takrady, and this is Joy News. Independent, fearless, credible.
And the side conversation on the International Fund for Public Interest Media. And since then, we've been working closely with IFPIM. I'm happy to announce here today that the Republic of Ghana has entered a partnership with the International Fund for Public Interest Media. And specifically, that partnership, which onboards our contribution in kind, is going to allow the Republic of Ghana to host the Africa regional headquarters of IFPIM, and to support the international staff, and the staff of IFPIM will be operating from the Africa regional headquarters with the necessary diplomatic courtesies that we extend to international organizations. And while I have the opportunity, let me call on all other states to enter similar partnerships with IFPIM and to execute programs that support public interest media, because it is a necessity for democracies to thrive and to flourish.
Thanks so much for joining us here on The Probe. Information Minister there, you just heard him make that big announcement. You get to hear it first here on The Probe. Thank you once again. Let's talk about this particular announcement ahead you make in all the way in front. What exactly is it about, sir?
One of the media support programs that we run at the Ministry of Information seeks to mop up or bring in global partnerships to support the Ghanaian media. The International Fund for Public Interest Media is one of these global partners that we've managed to secure to come and set up their Africa regional headquarters in Accra, Ghana, and to support, first of all, African media generally, but also while they are that Ghanaian media as well, for what we call the next stages of the media journey. Media has done very well over the years gone by. It's facing a lot of challenges, and it's important that we get some support. So this International Fund for Public Interest Media will provide grants to Ghanaian and African media. They also provide technical advice to media operators and practitioners. They will also support the digital transition of a lot of media houses. Today, you know that because of convergence. You can't just talk of television or radio or print or online. It's literally a converged arena. So they'll provide a lot of, digital migration support to some of the media houses, as well as training and capacity enhancement. We're very excited that we can attract this to Ghana to support Ghanaian media.
And that's some exciting news there, but how do we get to take advantage of this, especially when we are going to be setting up here in Ghana, amongst others, media persons like us, media houses, those watching? How do we get to take advantage of this?
We expect to fully open their office in Accra by December, and then they will make announcements and invite, Ghanaian media that may be interested in tapping into the array of services that they are offering. And you can send your requests and applications directly to them, and they will consider it with their independent panels and decide who's getting what grant, who's getting what support for training, who's getting what support for, the digital migration programs that they will be running.
And when exactly are we hoping for it to take off, you'd say?
As I mentioned, we expect to open their Accra office by December this year. Okay. And then expectation is that after that, they'd also be open to serve Ghanaian media.
Okay.
In addition to this, we're also working to get the Global Media Defense Fund also to support some of the initiatives in Ghana, particularly towards the safety of journalists.
I see that this week in particular, and the previous weeks, I should say, there's been a lot of media engagement, at least a media forum on the part from the Information Ministry. I've seen a lot of engagement on the front. What exactly is this recent stakeholders, at least the very last one that we saw? Did we actually meet the specific target? For which reason it was put together? Are there more in the pipeline? What exactly is this whole stakeholder forum about?
What we did a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, was a review of our media support programs. The Ministry of Information has a 5-part mandate. The first thing we do is that we support the ministries, departments, and agencies so that they can design and execute their communication strategies. Mm-hmm. We are also responsible for mobilizing feedback for government. Number 3 is that we are responsible for developing policies and programs to support the public communication ecosystem. And it's under that one that we find our media support programs. And then number 4 as well, we are also responsible for representation of the state-owned media before Parliament. As you know, they are independent, but when they have to go to Parliament, a minister has to represent them. And then recently, number 5 was the implementation of RTI. So under our number 3, where we develop policies and programs to support the public communications ecosystem, our media support programs were introduced in 2019, about 5 of them, one of which is these global partnerships that has led to this announcement. Now, about 2 or 3 years after that, it's important to review these programs and to see whether they are achieving their results, where there are gaps, how we can improve upon them. And so we brought all the stakeholders together in that stakeholders forum to examine. And it was an open forum. We didn't hide anything. They gave us good feedback where they thought they were pleased with some of the things we've done. They told us where they thought they are dissatisfied. They told us, and where they thought that there could be suggestions for improvement. They told us as well. And all of this is culminating in next year's execution of the media support programs.
Are there some specific action plans that came out of the stakeholder forum that you'd like to highlight?
Yes, for example, on the media capacity enhancement program, which has done 2 cohorts and has a 3rd, I think, by December, stakeholders gave us feedback that they want us to alter the model a bit and either focus on a training of trainers so that they can then train other journalists down the stream, or specific to media houses. So if a media house requests the University of Communications to come and do it for them, we provide the funding, then they go and do it. So that now you have specific media houses that are benefited from it. Those were 2 bits of advice that came in. On the coordinated mechanism for the safety of journalists, they requested that we deepen the kind of collaboration among the various actors in the political ecosystem. Parliament, for example, the judicial service, for example, the police in particular. And that's what led to the statement that I subsequently delivered in Parliament, I think a couple of days after that. On the global partnerships, for example, they were asking questions like we're asking, how do we open it up so that more can benefit? And we gave the timelines that from December, they should see a lot more. And then on the working with the regulators to literally ensure that offensive conduct is taken off the airwaves. We shared information that in the first 1 week after we set up the monitoring center with a call center associated with it, 120 reports have been made by people who are watching offensive conduct, money doubling, promotion of ritual murders, another offensive conduct, advertising of pornography or alcohol at inappropriate hours. 120 reports have been received so far. And they explain that they want to see a lot of transparency in how the NMC and NCA go about making determinations on these reports. And we've taken this feedback in good faith, and we intend to work with it in the coming year.
Of course, the issue about safety and the attacks on journalists, at least from the last count, at least about 14 incidents over the period, 17 personalities involved, amongst others. I bet this must have come up strongly. And in your statement in Parliament, you attributed it to the fact that the police and the judiciary should be largely blamed for no action in particular. But let's talk about safety and the issues, the concerns that were raised by these stakeholders regarding the attacks on journalists. Beyond just blaming the police and the judiciary, what exactly was the action plan they were hoping that we could implement to minimize it?
Well, first of all, we are not blaming the police or the judiciary. What we have said is that under the UNESCO framework, you need all of the actors in society playing various roles, and you need to hold everybody accountable for their part. For us as the executive branch and for us as the Ministry of Information, we have led the way in putting this coordinated mechanism together. We have gone to Cabinet to get the support of Cabinet, and it's been handed over to the National Media Commission to implement. And we've supported the National Media Commission to put up the basic, structures that they need to be able to execute it. And then secondly, when an incident occurs, we are quick to ensure that a report is made to the police, and then also to call it out for what it is worth. Beyond that, the third thing that now needs to happen is that the police need to prosecute these people, and the judicial service needs to ensure that there's severe punishment. We have engaged with the judicial service, and we have made a strong case for why persons who do this must be severely punished. And we've also engaged with the police to make a similar case. And we still have an accountability meeting that the Ghana Police Service and then the Ghana Armed Forces is going to hold with us before the end of this year to give account for all the cases that we have reported to them in times past. But it's also important to then brief Parliament on all that we have done and request Parliament to also play its role, that oversight function of the police as well, and that engagement with the judicial service. And that's one of the things that we told Parliament about in the week gone by when we went there. And then finally, the part 4 of that mechanism is that at the end of the year, they have to publish a report that shows what the nation state Ghana is doing about all of this. Of course, nobody's excited about the cases that have come up. We are worried that the trend is actually increasing, and we think that some more severity in terms of punishment will help deter persons who do this.
I'm glad you talk about some accountability meeting that will come up before the end of the year. But prior to your presentation to Parliament, I'm sure you've been trying to find some answers, especially some of the popular cases that we're hoping to get answers to. Ahmed Swale, for instance, amongst others. Really, what has been the preliminary findings or talks that you've had with the police, for instance, in terms of where we are with investigations with that particular matter, for instance?
I don't want to give a specific answer on that one because we want the police to come and speak for themselves. They are the ones who are handling these investigations. So not just that one. Radio Pena, for example, Radio Adan, the recent attack of the CTFM journalist, who went to the NDC headquarters, and a few others that we have reported to the police. And we're looking forward to this very open, transparent accountability meeting where the police and then the Ghana Armed Forces. In the Eastern region at Chimansa FM quite recently, there was another incident. We wrote to the Ghana Armed Forces. I called the Chief of Defense Staff myself. They sent a team to investigate. So they will be giving all of us an account of how they have handled these matters. And on an annual basis, we expect this accountability to take place so that once people are being punished for this, we expect that then you'll begin to see a decline in these cases.
Let's talk about the responsibility of the executive also. We've talked about the responsibility of the legislature, the responsibility of the judiciary. The responsibility of the executive also comes up, especially when we know we have the Ministry of Interior, we have the Vice President also leading the Council of the Police, amongst others. Really, in all this, does it look like the executive bears no blame at all when it comes to these issues?
Again, I don't think it's about blame. It's about responsibility. So what is the responsibility of the executive? First, to put in place this mechanism. Secondly, to ensure that matters that take place are quickly and promptly intervened in and reported to the police. And thirdly, to give the police pressure that finish this investigation without regard to whose ox is God, prosecute the people. That becomes the responsibility of the executive, in addition to advocacy like I've been doing on these matters and all of you have been doing. This is the clear responsibility of the executive. We are doing our best to execute that responsibility and to shine the light also on the police investigative and prosecutorial processes. And that is why we also want to hold them accountable openly, that where have you gotten to with these investigations?
Well, you know this issue about, at least you've practiced before, so you understand when I talk about the issue about political parties, governing parties, and their relationship to a large extent with the media, where the government is not happy about a certain, direction of a sense of direction of the media, then they tend to target the media to a large extent. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Really, is there any way that we are dealing with political parties also in their relationship with media and journalists in particular, when it tends that they are unhappy with the direction that the media takes, for instance?
Yeah, I'm happy you've asked this question. The first part of the coordinated mechanism is about advocacy and education, led by the National Media Commission. And it is to explain not just to political parties, but it's to explain to political parties, state actors, sometimes even businesses. In the case of a Radio Now, for example, we are told it's a business that was not happy with the coverage of the radio station and, had its assigns attack the station. So all of society, political parties, state actors, non-state actors, businesses, understanding clearly that you may not like what somebody says about you. I don't like everything people say about me, but I will defend the person's right to say it, because that is the right to free expression, which we hold so highly in this country. So you may not like what somebody says about you, but you do not have a right to attack that person because they have said it.
With Instacart, you can get groceries and more delivered from over 1,000 stores and 75,000 locations. So whether you need a massive haul from a wholesale club, everyday essentials from your go-to supermarket, or specialty items from your favorite local grocer, you can get whatever you need delivered in as fast as an hour. You can even shop for pet supplies, electronics, and sporting goods in just a few clicks. Visit instacart.com to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. $10 minimum per order. Additional terms apply.
At Strayer University, we see you striving to work harder and go further. That's why we provide you with the tools you need to get there, like offering a brand new laptop when you enroll in a bachelor's program. So you can do your coursework anytime, anywhere, and always keep striving. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. Eligibility rules, restrictions, and exclusions apply. Connect with us for details. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
With your choice of select sandwich, nugs, fries, and a drink, Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag is your go-to. Your nugget wingman. Your hot and crispy fry co-pilot.
Just like us. We're like the bag boys.
What?
Bag boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when we bring your food?
For a deal you can count on, bet on Biggie and choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
Bag boys.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Includes choice of JVC or crispy chicken sandwich with 4-piece nugs, junior fry, and small soft drink. Third-party delivery pricing may be higher.
Other remedies, if indeed you feel like your reputation has been injured, there are other legal remedies that you may resort to. And at the same time, part of that advocacy and training also goes to our colleagues who are journalists. For example, if you're a journalist covering a demonstration, how do you clearly identify yourself so that security persons, even if they are dealing with an unruly crowd, do not consider you as one? If you are a journalist in an investigative process, how do you protect yourself? So there's the first part of the coordinated mechanism, which deals with advocacy and training of various actors, and we believe that
has a responsibility also, at least in terms of what we do. But really, there are those who say that at least we have a voice in you, in government, because we can identify that you also has been a journalist, and once you are, always will be. Will you say that where we sit and under knowing that you are the voice in there, the safety of journalists can be guaranteed and will be guaranteed in the future? Would you say that journalists are better off as we speak?
We have to do a lot more to ensure that the efforts that we are undertaking bear fruit. And that is why we continue to advocate. That is why we continue to investigate and condemn anything of this nature that happens. That is why, as a point number 3, we are holding the police, the armed forces, and the judicial service accountable for the cases that we have reported to them. And that's where we are now, which is why we're also asking for Parliament's cooperation in this enterprise. And all of us have to do that. That X number of cases were reported, sometimes even by the Ministry of Information itself, or by media houses to the police. Where have you got into that investigation? If we are not satisfied with the kind of punishment, it is fair for us to engage the judicial service and say people cannot be given this very lenient punishment because it doesn't deter enough. So in me, you have a strong advocate and a voice as a brother in arms who will continue to do my part, and we need everybody else to come on board and to do their part so that we get the results we are looking for.
Well, this week, at least on the 16th or so of November, we're expecting the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to present the 2024 budget before the House. Ahead of it, we've been hearing businesses, amongst others, raising concerns about the possibility of new taxes to be introduced, amongst others. But really, let's talk about preparedness for this 2024 budget presentation. What can you tell us about it?
I think, first of all, we have to understand that the document you'll be presenting is in 2 parts. There's the economic policy, and then there's the budget. On the economic policy front, the government's objective is to quickly bring back stability. Inflation went very high up, into the 50s, and through a lot of monetary policy interventions, it is coming down gradually. Cost of living is also very, very, very high. And the government has been working to introduce a number of measures to try and arrest, if not bring down, cost of living. Growth, which is important because that's what ensures that the economy is expanding and creating jobs, is something that was constrained in the last 2 years or so. I can tell you on authority that the President asked for a growth plan to be prepared, which growth plan was accepted by Cabinet and is being infused into the economic policy. And so you will find some specific growth areas that the government has approved, that the limited financing should be made available to these areas so that those areas can expand and create jobs for a lot of young people. And then finally, I think deepening stability.
Are you able to let us in a bit more on this growth plan and the specific areas that Cabinet approved?
Those will be for the minister responsible for finance to outline, but I can tell you that a growth plan has been approved by Cabinet, and it will find expression in the economic policy document, which will be laid before Parliament. So the idea is to deepen stability, get the economy growing, to create some more jobs, try and bring down the cost of living, and while at that specifically inflation as well. You will see that find expression fully in the economic policy that will be laid before Parliament. Then you come to the fiscals or the budget itself that underpins this economic policy. You would recall that the fiscal framework has already been signed off as part of the ECF facility that we signed with the IMF. And so there's a fiscal path that we are on, which is aimed at narrowing or reducing our deficit position. I think in the year before we were at negative 3.5 or negative 4.5. In this current year, we've been trying to do a negative 0.5. And I think in the next year, it's supposed to be a positive 0.5. So that fiscal path has already been approved, and we will be continuing on that fiscal path, even in the fiscal framework that underpins this year's economic policy. And I guess that's what, most Ghanaians should be looking forward to in the budget part of the two-part document that will be presented before Parliament.
Well, are we expecting new taxes, or there will be reduction in taxes amongst others? What exactly should we expect, you'd say?
The Minister for Finance has indicated to Parliament that there are some tax reliefs that he will be continuing with, and then there will also be some revenue measures that he will be introducing. He has already indicated that to Cabinet, and I think Ghanaians should expect details when he delivers the detail of the statement before Parliament.
Tax reliefs and revenue measures, but you're unable to let us in on what exactly we should expect. New taxes, what exactly?
Again, as I mentioned, those details are for the Minister responsible for Finance, but what he has indicated to Cabinet is that he will maintain some tax reliefs, and then he would also introduce some revenue measures as well.
But from what you hear, would it make us better off in terms of cost of living? We've talked about issues, growth, jobs, amongst others. But from what you're hearing, the tax reliefs and the revenue measures, it will definitely leave us better off because the businesses are already hoping that they will get some good news.
Again, that's a fair question. I think the overall objective is to ensure that cost of living, cost of doing business, and inflation are contained, and in particular for inflation, you are able to bring it down. Therefore, whatever tax reliefs you want to continue with should be designed to achieve this purpose. And whatever revenue measures you want to introduce should also be such that they do not reverse the overall objective that you are trying to achieve. And that's the balance that the Minister for Finance has to try and achieve when he delivers the detailed impact.
Well, we're hoping for that good news when the finance minister presents that budget. But the issue about our IMF deal, at least before we went to the IMF, we're here. We had that discussion. Our first tranche in, there's a review underway amongst others. We're expecting the second tranche. From the timeline that we got, we announced that indeed we had missed that first deadline, which was supposed to be on the 1st of November. There's a statement from the ministry trying to clarify that amongst others. But really, where are we when it comes to the second tranche of the IMF deal?
Yeah, the first review has been concluded, and Ghana was successful in that review. And I think at the end of that review, there was a joint press conference between Ghana's finance minister and then the head of the IMF team that is handling this particular transaction. And a staff-level agreement was signed and announced to undergird our pass of the first review. And then it was mentioned that staff-level agreement will have to go to the IMF Executive Board, which board meets in the third week of November to give it approval. And when that approval is given, then the second tranche will be dispersed. Actually, this is the structure for all the tranches. And I think if I read the statement from the Ministry of Finance quite clear, they made the point that once it was quite clear that the executive board meeting is in the third week of November, it will be incorrect for anybody to say that there's a timeline that has already been missed. And I think their statement sought to correct that misinformation that was put out there in the public domain. The understanding is that the IMF Executive Board will meet in the third week in November. And God willing, if the Executive Board approves the staff-level agreement which underpin the first review, then that second tranche disbursement will take place.
But the concern, how then do we explain that table that we saw in terms of the timelines that were put there? We didn't talk about deadlines, we're talking about the timelines that we saw for November 1. How then do we explain that particular timeline that was there that we saw for November 1?
I don't have the text before me of what was in that table. I moderated that press conference, and I recall the point was made that the third week in November was when the IMF Executive Board was going to meet and take a decision on that. I think that what we need to do is to rally around the flag and support the exercise to ensure that Ghana gets approval at the Executive Board meeting. I'm not even too sure that a debate back home about, a table or the lack of a table will really do us any good. it is the third week in November that the board will meet and hopefully approve the staff level agreement. And then on the back of that, Ghana can expect a second tranche. But anytime I speak about the IMF, I'm quick to mention that the IMF transaction is not the solution to our problems. The IMF transaction is financing to underpin our PCPEC, which is our program to recover from the economic challenges that we have had. The entire world has had economic challenges. In fact, I was watching a speech of the former President Mahama delivered abroad just about a week ago, where he explains how the challenges in the global economy affected the Ghanaian economy. Everybody knows that there's been a global economic challenge. It has affected Ghana. And various countries have been developing their various plans. If you go to America, they passed the Inflation Reduction Act aimed at responding to some part of it, in addition to their hikes in monetary policy rate. If you go to England, I think it was Liz Truss who introduced the energy price cap guarantee. And without a timeline on it, it sent some shocks into their investor markets, affected currency, and it led to the end of our government as well. In Ghana, we introduced the PCPEC, the Post-Crisis Program for Economic Growth. And we mentioned on the 1st of July 2022 that we needed funding to execute it. So what the IMF is providing is funding, which is executing it. We have to back home, get aggressive with our economic measures so that on the economic policy fronts, we can grow the economy, expand it, create jobs for people, bring down cost of living and inflation and cost of doing business. And then on the fiscal front as well, ensure that we narrow the gap between our revenues and our expenditures.
And has that been done, narrowing that gap? Because we've always said, at least we've heard you say that the IMF transaction not a solution to that, but are we actually narrowing that gap between revenue and expenditures on our own, especially when we're going to an election year and the issue about fiscal discipline comes up?
Yeah. So first we have to look at the data. The year before, as I mentioned, was about negative 3.5 or negative 4.5. This year, we're trying to bring it down to negative 0.5. And then next year, 2024, trying to take it to a positive 0.5. That's the fiscal path on which we are. That's the narrowing that we are talking about. To succeed at that. The data already suggests that we are doing well at that, and we need to keep at it. Next year is an election year. Yeah. The theory has been, or the expectation has been, that during an election year, governments try to spend their way to make the public happy so that they can win the election. But I think already I can tell you on authority that what Cabinet has decided that the best approach is to ensure that stability is deepened, not necessarily to go for a fiscal expansionary module, but is to ensure that stability is maintained and that the cost of living and inflation are contained. That is the best gift that you can give to the people of Ghana in the midst of a global economic challenge like this, as against going on a fiscal expansionary path. And that's what Cabinet has approved. That's what we expect to find expression in the fiscal framework part of the documents that the finance minister will put before Parliament.
Well, one would have thought that would have heard from the IMF. I know you say it is not really the solution to it, but one would have thought that at least the second tranche would have come in before the presentation of the 2024 budget. I'm sure that does not matter from where you sit, but really, what's the status of our engagement with the official credit committee of the Paris Club? Do we know what exactly the status is whilst we wait for the third week of November for that big announcement?
The engagements that we had with them in the UK were quite cordial, and we are expecting that we will be able to get to some sort of understanding with them before the end of this year. We are not required to complete an external debt exchange program before the next tranche or so, but we are expected to demonstrate progress. And we have reason to believe that that progress is being demonstrated in our engagements that are ongoing with them. And no, it was not our expectation that the second tranche will be dispersed before the reading of the budget. As we have been, quite clear from that press conference. The board itself will meet, I think, in the third week of November. And until the board meets, you can't expect that there will be even approval, and without approval, even disbursement. So I think we have to declare with that right from the beginning.
And are we hoping that when the board meets third week of November, we're getting that approval that we're waiting for?
So far on this journey, there have been those who have, always expressed the view that Ghana can't do it. And I think the government negotiating team has always been optimistic. We remain optimistic.
And our external debt restructuring negotiations, maybe an update on that as well?
As I mentioned, it's cordial, and we are demonstrating that progress to the fund. We are not expected to complete it before the end of this year. We're expected to demonstrate progress in the various categories, and optimistic that it will end well.
Really, when we talk about this, for the ordinary person, they just want to know the 600 million that we got the first time. What did it actually go into?
600 million, let me take your viewers and your listeners back. We said, initially what we said was that we needed balance of payment support, which was essentially going to go to the central bank to shore up the currency. Eventually, when we concluded the negotiation, it was for balance of payment, yes, and also for budget support. And so you find that a part of that 600 million came to support the 2023 budget execution, especially on the expenditure side. Because, what happened, and sometimes when you talk about the impact of COVID on the economy, people want to wish away that, you are making excuses, you are making excuses. When an economy is shut down or is slowed down, productivity slows down. Government revenue is a byproduct of productivity. So when an economy slows down, like the Ghanaian economy, which was doing average of 7% in the first 3 years, when it slows down to about 0.9% in the year 2020, and about, 1.5 in the year 2020, and struggling in 2022, the effect is that government revenues will also take a dip. In other parts of the world, when they realized that, what they did was that they furloughed government workers. So if you're a federal worker, you don't get 100% of your salary. You get a percentage of your salary. In Ghana, the decision we took was that no government worker will experience a furloughing of their salary. So even for, let's say, teachers who had to stay home when public schools were closed, they got paid. Public sector workers who were, doing a job rotation exercise, they all got paid. In addition to that, government expenditure was expanded, by paying for water, electricity, healthcare for other people. So by the time you were done, you had a huge debt burden, which then led you into some of the challenges that we have had. But the revenue is still now gradually getting back on track as compared to where it should have been by now. I think that's great. It's not to say that nominally revenue is tanked, but as compared to where it should have been by now, comparing it with our expenditure curves, the revenue is yet to get to where it ought to have been by now. And once that is happening, you need to shore it up with some external resources. Remember, we tried e-levy as a domestic resource channel. It was highly bastardized. We didn't get the revenues that we were looking for. So a part of this external funding goes to shore up the gap in revenue that exists now, even as you try to get back onto the revenue path.
Well, we'll close the discussion on the economy briefly on that. We can go on to other issues. But the issue about Cocoa Board also comes up when we were talking about the economy, because I remember from PGIC when you announced that syndicated loan for Cocoa Board, amongst others. But we're hearing now that it appears that Cocoa Board is in dire straits such that they are unable to pay the farmers and they're actually borrowing from the traders. What exactly is the situation with Cocoa Board? Are they that broke?
So Cocoa Board has not had, for the longest time I can remember, has not had its own resources to buy cocoa. What happens is that Cocoa Board takes a syndicated loan, and then based on that syndicated loan, which is based on a forward contract of the pricing, they then pass on money to the LBCs, which go to the farm gates to buy the cocoa. This has been the structure from time immemorial. And the fact that Cocoa Board has been doing syndicated loans has not been because Cocoa Board is so broke that it's been doing syndicated loans. This is what Cocoa Board has been doing. And anybody who is being fair to the facts over the years, this is what Cocoa Board does. Now, this year, Cocoa Board has yet to go to the market. The Agri Minister makes me understand, in fact, he explained to Cabinet that they are preparing to now go to the market. But this year, they want to do what they call blended finance. If they go to the market, because of where Ghana's credit ratings are, if they go to the market for, let's say, $1 billion, it comes at a particular rate. And because of our credit rating, that rate is higher. So can they find another source of funding which is cheaper to blend with what they will borrow on the market, so that in the end, the composite debt servicing is not as high as if they had just gone on the market alone. And so they are here to go to the market for the syndicated loan. That's the brief that the Agri Minister has given to Cabinet. But they've also succeeded in arranging with the LBC, some of the LBCs, to provide the trade financing component of it. So that if they have to provide $1 billion, maybe what they are going to do now is to take 600 from the market, which is now at a higher interest rate because of our credit rating, and then 400 trade financing from the same LBCs that they have been working with. It is this blended finance which I think has been reported in some of the news portals that they are so broke that they are taking money from the LBCs. But I do expect that when the Agri Minister appears on the floor of Parliament requesting for parliamentary approval for the syndicated loan in collaboration with the Finance Minister, I do expect that they'll speak to all of these issues in detail.
Well, there are those who are of the view that Cocoa Board then ought to be taken out of the mix so that farmers can deal directly with the buyers, amongst others. Are you one of those who would subscribe to that, or you feel that is not where we ought to go in terms of direction?
To be honest, I haven't exercised my mind properly to that proposal. Maybe we need to think about it some more. But from the government point of view, my understanding is that the syndicated approach through Cocoa Board is what they are currently using. And what it does is that it guarantees a certain price for cocoa farmers, a certain uniform price for cocoa farmers across the country. And you'll see recently, when that approach was used, cocoa farmers are pretty happy at the kind of margins that they are getting.
Okay, we'll take a quick break here on the probe. My guest is the Information Minister, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, joining us via Zoom. We'll return with a lot more issues briefly before we wrap up. Issues about the La General Hospital to deal with issues on health, renal patients also coming up, issues about dialysis, and then the Akosombo Dam spillage. We've been hearing from residents giving government a 14-day ultimatum to at least give them a resettlement plan, amongst others. That's right back after the break. We'll get talking. Please do stay with us.
Kwala bi keke krani ebe wunu wore bompo me ba anakoto be ya boade ama denchai ade bia ya me papa de woni mo ahye meshimo makoko aman tenkwa oha e mani me mamu ahoden
It's not no year payment. Family share. Me say, me jolo. Inga ho.
Depend on who ade fe no do.
Hi, my name is Joel Nete, and I bring you greetings from the Old Achimota Association, of which I'm the president. I'm inviting you to Achimota Speaks, which is a platform created by the Old Achimota Association, but indeed a platform where all Ghanaians living everywhere can have a conversation around the most critical things that matter to us as a people. The next Achimota Speaks events which holds on Thursday, the 16th of November at the British Council Hall. It's under the theme, Ghana, a country in crisis, defining a new economic direction. Our keynote speaker is Professor Nyako of the New York University. Professor Nyako is a distinguished economist and brings to this conversation both an international and, of course, locally relevant perspective. On the panel with him will be Pishigulana Alassane Andani, the former CEO of Stanbic Bank. We also have Mr. Kofi Finn of Petro Trust, and we also have Mr. Frank Edu, a former CEO of Cowbank. This conversation will be moderated by Accra Belamundi, and we are poised to have a very serious conversation, not just about our past, and indeed not about our current situation as a country, but maybe even more importantly, where we need to be going into the future if we want to change our fortunes. Like I said, this is a platform that invites all Ghanaians who care about Ghana. So regardless of what school you went to, regardless of where you are in the economy, please come, let's have this conversation. It's at the British Council Hall on Thursday, the 16th of November, and it starts at 6 p.m. sharp. So please come at 5 o'clock, come meet, come greet, come network, and let's start this conversation at 6 p.m. sharp. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks for staying with us here on The Probe. We're live on the Joy News channel on Joy 99.7 FM, affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We are on DSTV channel 421, GoTV 125, myjoyonline.com, and all social media platforms. My guest is the Information Minister, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, and we've been talking about the economy, especially also about the media, which is very, very important. Now, thank you so much for staying with us, Mr. Oppong Nkrumah. So let's head into issues about health, and these issues have come up this week, or last week I should say, especially the La General Hospital. It was a heated argument in Parliament, especially. We'll be hearing from residents also who say that if government will not, take up what they started, then they would actually take it into their own hands and complete it. What exactly is the issue when it comes to the La General Hospital? Why did we tear it down when we're not ready to build?
I think the health minister spoke to it in Parliament, and he explained that they expected to commence construction after they had torn it down, and it was torn down because of the structural challenges that had been reported to them. But after it was torn down, according to his statement in Parliament, they had financial challenges because of the general financial challenges that we've been having. And like he explained to Parliament, they've been trying to work around it. If I heard him well in Parliament again, he explained that they've been able to secure some financial arrangement for it, and that in about a week or two he can provide some more details on it. And then I think the Honorable Katie Hammond, who is part of a group that the President put together to deal with the matter, also explained in Parliament that the commitment of the government to completing that process remains, and that the group that the President put together to work on it will continue to do their best to ensure that that project sees the light of day. These statements were made on the floor of Parliament and before the parliamentary press call, and I think we all followed it. What we all look forward to is that indeed work will commence as quickly as possible so that the people of La can benefit from what was intended for them.
But is government really concerned about the situation? I was hoping you'd tell us more than what we heard in public as well. Is government really concerned?
With your choice of select sandwich, nugs, fries, and a drink, Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag is your go-to. Your nugget wingman. Your hot and crispy fry co-pilot.
Just like us. We're like the bag boys.
What?
Bag boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when we bring your food?
For a deal you can count on, bet on Biggie and choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
Bag boys, bag boys.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Includes choice of JVC or crispy chicken sandwich with 4-piece nugs, junior fry, and small soft drink. Third-party delivery pricing may be higher.
About the situation.
What I can tell you is that the president is literally been asking about it almost every time we go to cabinet and asking for an update on the new financial arrangements that are being put in place. Some options were made available. Some of the parts of those options were questioned. And the committee or the group that the president put together working on it is the one that has been speaking to it and explaining that they have some clarity. They need about a week, and then they can update the country on how they are going forward with it.
Well, what they didn't give us is any timeline, but we're hoping that we'll get some timelines as to when exactly this La General Hospital will be built. But it doesn't look like we're able to get that timeline, can we?
I think the closest we have is the commitment from the health minister that in about a week they can outline the details of what they've been able to put together. I suspect that at that time we can hold them firmly to a timeline, and then we'll have clarity on it.
I'm sure one other issue that the president will be very interested in, because one of such announcements was made right here on the show when during COVID period, when he announced the Agenda 111, 111 hospitals to be built, and then also some 5 regional hospitals also in the new regions. Really, we're hoping that would have been completed by the end of 2024, before the end of President Akufo-Addo's tenure. There were some updates that were giving. At least I hosted the presidential advisor on health, Dr. Anthony Siasare, on this. But at the last count, where exactly are we with Agenda 111? How many hospitals really are we hoping to be completed by the end of this year, I was told?
What number did he give you?
Tell me. I was giving about 89 or so at that time.
I don't have new numbers beyond what Dr. Siasare told you. Like I keep saying, our job is to assist the ministries, departments, and agencies to put out their information. And for Agenda 111, for example, we've traveled across the country with them, showcasing to the country the progress of work. A good number of them are even beyond the roofing stage. In my constituency, for example, we are we are at the roofing stage. And as we've traveled across the country, there's roofing going on in many places. And anytime we do these visits, we broadcast it live on television, and hospital working group that is handling the project gives an update of the numbers. So beyond the numbers that Dr. Siasare gave you, I don't have a number timeline. We expect the next one, I think, to take place in Garu, maybe in about a month or so. So maybe by that time I can get you the latest numbers. But suffice to say that they have informed us that they expect to have some completed and commissioned next year.
Okay. Well, let's head to the issue about the spillage. We have some more time that we can quickly take some views on that. We've been hearing the updates in Parliament, the VRA, and then also the Energy Minister giving us updates on why the need for this particular spillage. But the concern for the residents, really, issues about education, health, their livelihoods, everything affected. And they are hoping that they can get some form of resettlement plan, at least from government. There was a committee that was set up. What's really the update on that?
The brief that the Interministerial Committee has received essentially is that so the entire exercise was grouped into 3. The first part of the exercise was to ensure that people who had been displaced were given temporary shelters and were supported at these temporary shelters. The brief we have is that has gone on smoothly and has also received massive compliment from the general public, who've also been participating through a lot of mobilization from your colleagues in the media. And at the GJ Awards, we were very commending of what our colleagues in the media and the general public have done. So the brief we have is that has gone well. The second part is that in places where the waters have receded, people are being assisted to resettle back in their homes. That is where I think effort is now in resettling people in places where waters have receded. When that is done, then there will be the third level of helping people to come back to their economic livelihoods. A lot of people have their economic livelihoods that have been destroyed as a result of these floods. But we are not there yet. I think we are now at the second stage where NADMO and VRA and the local authorities are going through a process of helping people to resettle in places where the water levels have receded. It will take a while, and we have to keep an eye on it. The conversation is that if there are people who cannot be resettled in their specific homes, because maybe, if you take Bakpa, for example, old Bakpa, we are told, was overtaken by waters that never receded, and that's why they had to move to new Bakpa. If you have a scenario like that, then there will be the need to do some resettlement work around that. But if you have places where this is just an extraordinary incident that is not expected to repeat itself in the short time, then they'll be assisted to resettle. That is the phase where we are now.
But to the extent that the people seem to have been left in the dark in terms of where exactly we are with plans, so that's the concern for them, for which reason they held a press conference giving government a 2-week ultimatum to at least enlighten them on what exactly the plan is. So do we have any plans to at least engage the people and let them know what exactly will happen?
I think that what we would have to deepen is the engagement between the local authorities that are handling. Remember, this is in a number of regions, from the northern part of the country way down to the southern part. And though at the national level there may be a national press conference every 2 days, like happens, at the local level there is the need to also get the local authorities to explain to the people affected what the next steps are. And I think that's the feedback that we'll have to deepen.
Okay. Well, so these are some of the key issues that, at least the questions that I've seen also on social media, amongst others, that have come in terms of wanting. But where have you been exactly is a concern that I've seen from some, that it's actually been a minute. Where exactly have you been? We haven't heard from you in a while, is most of the questions that I'm seeing.
You were just telling me about, hearing all that we've been doing at the Ministry of Information the last week of the last 2 weeks gone by. We continue to deliver on the ministry's mandate and to support the other ministries to, push out their communication as well.
I don't know if you've seen, right after, I think it was last 2 weeks that you held, it was just last week that the NPP held that presidential primaries and Dr. Bawumia was elected flag bearer. At least I've seen the campaigning when he came to Ofuase, amongst others. I don't know, I'm sure you were supporting the vice president, weren't you? Just to start with.
Yes, I was. We got about 73% in Ofuase and in many other places as well. And I think the other candidates also got some good numbers in other parts of the country. But that's the beauty of the NPP. We don't impose candidates. We have open contests, and then we're able to choose a leader. And we were excited to see the two front runners come together and talk about the fact that the showdown is now coming on with the NDC.
Well, I asked that also because I've seen some newspapers and issues about running mates coming up, and I've seen your picture also in there. I'm sure you've heard that at least when it comes to the names for running mates, your name has come up. Have you been approached already?
Listen, I think that the most important thing we need to do now is to give the flag bearer of the party the room to work towards unity. It's very important. And then after that, he will be the best place to determine who we can work with in the capacity of a vice presidential candidate. And I think that all of these efforts, to push names here and there should be discouraged. Let's give him the support and the focus so that he's able to unite the party. If you look at the numbers, in the election, there were different views. It's important to now try and rally. And in an election process like this, some people get offended because of how campaigns go. What we need to do is to support the flag bearer to unite and move us forward.
Ms. Oppong Nkrumah, we're grateful. We'll leave it here, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on The Probe. That's the Information Minister, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. Another edition of The Probe comes your way, same time here on the Joy News channel. For our radio audience, A Walk of Jesus is up next. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. On behalf of the entire team, I say many thanks for being a part of The Probe. I am MFA Abba.